You ever run into a neighbor who acts like the whole block revolves around them? Picture this. Every morning I step outside, coffee or keys in hand, ready to go, and there it is. A gleaming Porsche sitting in my assigned spot like it owns the driveway. Not once, not twice, but morning after morning. And of course it belonged to the spoiled son of our HOA president, the neighborhood's very own Karen. I'd put up with Karen's nonsense before. She was the ruler-measuring, rule-enforcing type, the one who sent passive-aggressive emails about trash cans being 1 inch out of line and lectured parents about kids on bicycles. But this crossed a line. Parking here is tight and I pay for my space. Yet her kid, some entitled 20-something who barely lived here, decided my spot was convenient for him. At first, I tried the reasonable route. I knocked on their door, explained calmly that the space was assigned to me, and asked if he could move the car. He just smirked, mumbled something about plenty of room, and shut the door. That should have been the end of it. But the next morning, the Porsche was back like a deliberate insult. I went to Karen expecting the HOA president, the person who claims to enforce the rules, to care about something this obvious. Instead, she gave me that smug, condescending smile that means, I don't have to listen to you. He's only here temporarily, she said, as if that justified stealing someone else's space. Surely you can park somewhere else for a bit. Not a big deal, she said. That same Karen would fine another neighbor $50 because their recycling lid didn't close properly, but when it was her son, the rules evaporated. That was when I saw it clearly. This wasn't just entitlement. It was raw hypocrisy. So I started keeping records, photos, time-stamped, of the car sitting in my spot, notes about frequency and times. I even captured video of him and his friends laughing about how they'd taken the old guy's place. They thought it was a joke. They thought I was helpless. They had no idea I was building a case and a plan. By the time I was finished, that Porsche wouldn't just be parked where it didn't belong. It wouldn't be anything but junk. Over the next week, things escalated. The Porsche was there every morning, glinting in the sun like a trophy meant to taunt me. I tried every polite option first. Notes on the windshield that got ignored, calls to the HOA that went nowhere, and even a tow request that got squashed when Karen insisted her son was a guest and therefore immune from enforcement. The word exempt burned like gasoline in my mind. And the neighbors? They started whispering. Some neighbors shook their heads and felt sorry for me. Others kept their distance, terrified of ending up on Karen's bad side. She ran the block like a petty monarch and everyone seemed to bow. Her son strutted around like he owned the world, revving that Porsche late into the night, waking up the whole street just because he liked the sound of it. There was one morning I'll never forget. I'd parked 3 streets over and was already late for work. Trudging back to the house when I saw him lounging against the Porsche in my spot, sipping an energy drink and cracking jokes with his crew. He noticed me, called out with that smug grin, "Thanks for letting me borrow this spot again," and his friends howled like it was comedy gold. My blood felt like molten iron. My hands curled into fists before I even realized it. Lying awake that night, I came to a hard truth. This wasn't about convenience for them. It was about control. Taking my space was a show of dominance, a reminder that in Karen's world, I ranked below her family no matter what I paid or how I followed the rules. Enough. I decided then that I wasn't going to sit quietly while they made my life a daily insult. The plan unfolded slowly, carefully. I refused to be reckless. I didn't want to get tangled in legal trouble. This needed to be methodical, exact, and deliver the satisfaction of righting a wrong. I watched the Porsche the way a person studies a clock. When it was parked, how it was left, which way the wheels pointed. I learned the rhythm of their comings and goings until I could predict when the car would be unattended. I also began assembling what I thought I needed. Heavy-duty tire spikes. A few gallons of a corrosive solution I'd ordered under the pretense of cleaning supplies. And a small dash cam to capture whatever happened. I didn't want there to be any question about what had occurred. I wanted it all documented. For a week, I rehearsed in my head, mapping timing, placement, and escape routes. I tracked the quietest hours, the times Karen wasn't home, the stretches when the street slept. To me, this was less about vengeance and more about serving justice in a way that would make the double standard impossible to ignore. When the night finally arrived, I felt a cold, focused calm. A thin drizzle muffled my steps, the streetlights throwing halos through the mist. The Porsche sat in my assigned space, polished and smug under the lamp. Tonight, though, the balance would tip. I moved quickly and low, sliding the first element of my plan into place beneath the front tires, something designed to render them useless once the car began to roll. Hidden by shadow and curb angle, it sat unseen where the rubber would meet it. I didn't stop there. I worked around to the rear and left a careful line of that corrosive mix against parts of the exhaust, not to cause a catastrophe, but to slowly eat away at metal so the car would be compromised over time. Finally, I swapped out the tiny valve caps on the tires with the pressure release versions I'd bought online. A last quiet touch. Each step felt like payback measured in small, irreversible acts. By the time I finished, I stepped back and watched the car sleeping in my spot, its gleam dulled by the night and the rain. I felt equal parts nervous and vindicated, knowing the morning would bring consequences for them in a way they hadn't expected. This wasn't just about making noise or getting even. It was about sending a message that the rules couldn't be bent for one family while everyone else suffered. They were designed to leak slowly, letting the air hiss out overnight. By morning, even if by some miracle he avoided the spikes, he'd still wake up to find all 4 tires flat as pancakes. When I finally stepped back from the setup, rain dripping off my jacket and my hands trembling with adrenaline, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. For once, I wasn't the victim of Karen's double standards or her son's arrogance. I was the one dictating the terms. And just to make sure every ounce of this counted, the dash cam inside my car was recording it all, documenting each detail of the trap. I hardly slept that night, staring at the ceiling as adrenaline buzzed through my veins. By sunrise, I was already at my window, blinds cracked, waiting like a hunter in a blind. At exactly 8, the brat emerged, sunglasses perched on his face, phone glued to his hand. He barely glanced at the Porsche before sliding in, revving the engine with his usual smug flourish and shifting into gear. What came next was pure music, a deafening pop as the tires exploded one after another, rubber shredding instantly. The Porsche jerked forward awkwardly, sparks flickering as metal scraped pavement. His expression flipped from smug superiority to horrified disbelief in seconds, and I savored every flicker of it. This was only the overture. The real destruction hadn't even started. The sound carried through the neighborhood like fireworks gone wrong. Pops, screeches, bangs. I leaned against my window sipping coffee as his perfect little morning unraveled. He leapt from the Porsche, cursing and shouting, staring down at the shredded tires like fate itself had betrayed him. His friends, who had just arrived to carpool, lingered uncomfortably, stifling laughter and avoiding his eyes. And then came Act 2. The corrosive solution began its work. Wisps of smoke curled from underneath as the muffler and exhaust sizzled, the metal blistering and flaking away. His panic doubled. He fumbled with his phone, no doubt calling the one person who always swooped in to save him, Karen. I could almost hear her shrieking from behind my window. Sure enough, within minutes, she stormed out in her robe, curlers bouncing, looking more like a crazed bystander than the HOA queen she pretended to be. When her eyes landed on the Porsche, her face drained pale, then flushed scarlet. "What did you do?" she screamed, as though her son had single-handedly destroyed the car. He stammered excuses, waving at the ground, pointing at the tires, gesturing wildly at the smoke. But Karen wasn't listening. Her iron reputation was crumbling right in front of her neighbors. By then, a small crowd had gathered. Phones came out, cameras rolling, whispers spreading like wildfire. "Isn't that Karen's son's car? Didn't she brag about enforcing the rules? Can't even control her own family." Every murmur was a dagger to her pride. And me, I played the innocent bystander. I strolled out, coffee mug in hand, eyebrows raised like I'd just noticed the scene. "Oh, wow," I said casually, letting my voice carry. "Guess that's why parking rules are so important. You never know what can happen when people don't follow them." The words hung in the air, an echo of her own lectures thrown right back at her. The Porsche was wrecked beyond saving. tires obliterated, exhaust eaten alive, the frame bent from rolling partially over the spikes. Eventually, a tow truck arrived, dragging the once pristine car away like a fallen soldier. Karen tried desperately to salvage her authority, barking at the HOA board to investigate. But the dashcam footage told the real story. Her son mocking me, bragging about stealing my spot, and her brushing off my complaints. I sent it anonymously to the board. Within weeks, Karen was ousted as HOA president. Her son never dared park in my spot again, mostly because his precious Porsche had been written off as scrap, the insurance refusing to cover negligence. Justice at last was served, not just for me, but for every neighbor who had lived under her petty reign. And the best part? They never suspected who had orchestrated their downfall. That's how it all went down. If you enjoyed this wild HOA Karen story and want more neighborhood drama like it, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Your support keeps these stories alive.